In Lesson 8, we're going to look at the play within the play. And I'm just using the title Hold the Mirror Up to Nature, which is one of Hamlet's kind of notions of what drama is supposed to do. This is probably the most extended treatment that Shakespeare's ever given to talking about the theater. He does talk about it in other plays. There are plays within the play, like Midsummer Night's Dream. You could argue Taming of the Shrew is as well, though it's not often talked about, that framing narrative. But theater and theatricality and the job of acting and playing a role and being a person and performing self is something that you see in a lot of his plays. But in this one in particular, you see it a lot. And I think it's totally a misnomer to think this is Shakespeare's ideas about acting itself, but it is crucial to remember that it's Hamlet, this character who's losing himself, who's confused about what he's supposed to do and be, who's obsessed with the theater. And here he is quite obnoxious in the way he's instructing professional actors in how to act. So might it be a better way to read this, instead of thinking of this as Shakespeare's version of what theater should be, but actually some posh prince's notion of what theater should be, telling the actual actors that he can do their job better. I mean, it is the character of Hamlet after all. But really, it's this real extended metaphor and theme of theater that runs through the play. That I'd like you to think about. Speak the speech, I pray you, as I pronounced it to you. So remember, Hamlet's written, and we don't know what lines they are, but like 16 lines or so. Not very much, mind you. In the middle of this Gonzago play about a murder, and he wants it to make it look like the murder of his dad because he wants to trap Claudius. Maybe he also wants to trap his mother too. He wants to investigate, really, what is this ghost right? What's going on? What's interesting here is I pronounced it to you. So it's like he's giving instructions on speaking to actors. And, I want it to just trip off the tongue, like smoothly, I guess, and almost naturally. But if you mouth it, so I guess there are a lot of things I guess we can glean about theatrical practice at the time. I guess if people didn't know their lines, maybe people on stage just mouthed it and someone off stage was yelling and ventriloquizing. So he goes, look, if you do mouth it, I'd had the town crier spoke my lines. Don't just scream. Don't just announce. So voice is important. The next thing is gesture. Don't saw the air too much. People just kind of do this. Don't saw the air too much. Wonderful, wonderful image. But if you're gonna do things, use everything gently. Just do it subtly. He's looking for subtlety. And he has this really interesting image, okay? In the tempest and whirlwind of passion, you need to be calm and smooth. I think that's really interesting emotion. You can't get caught up. Remember, the first player starts weeping in the speech about the murder or the revenge of against Priam, and Hecuba's weeping. Like he gets caught up in it. Whereas I guess it makes me think, did the player get caught up in it, or was that itself a performance for their benefit? I don't know. I think that's an interesting problem as well. Here he's just like, look, there's a lot of stuff that's going to go on, but the actor has to be that calmness, smoothness. It really bugs me. He goes further. It offends me to a robustious, periwig, pated fellow tear a passion to tatters, to very rags, to split the ear of the ground. Just someone who's posh and horrible and screaming and ruining it for everyone, okay? And split the ear of the groundlings, the audience at the Globe that could pay very little to sit and watch and listen to a play. But they don't get it. They don't get the language. All they want, Hamlet seems to be saying, is dumb shows, mimes, and noise. Mime and noise. I think this is one real indication that perhaps, well, I don't know. Look, I don't know what Shakespeare thought of his audience, but he made a lot of money off them, and he's writing for them, and he's got to write for the top, this intellectual class, and he's got to entertain them. But Hamlet's not interested. He said, they just want miming. This is ironic, actually. This is odd, because it's exactly this that begins the play that we're about to see, a dumb show, a mime. And he seems to be saying that it's bad. And then he castigates overacting. Okay, so typical to him, he seems to contradict himself. Okay, look, don't overact, but don't be too tame either. Discretion, like a true upper class Englishman. Just know the right thing to say in the right moment. Make the action and the word suited to one another. The word and the action should come together. And don't over-exaggerate beyond nature, because for anything so overdone is from the purpose of playing, whose end, both at the first and the new, was, as it were, he says, look, really what we're trying to do is hold a mirror up to nature. I've been reading a very interesting book that looks at, I think a lot of us imagine a modern mirror, or maybe even a floor-length mirror, or a huge mirror. And what the play Hamlet's doing, or Shakespeare's theater, some people think, is that it's reflecting society. And it might help to think about what was actually a mirror at the time. A mirror was a very small, intimate object, very cloudy and murky. So it's just an interesting reading to think that this idea of mirror might be a bit different, that we're trying to see the world in art, but it isn't pure mimesis. It isn't pure copy, but we want to see something in nature, not just a distortion. Anyway, it's just an interesting notion. Hamlet really is saying that what we're doing is looking at the world, or doing some kind of transformation or reflection of the world. We want to show virtue. We want to reflect the time we're in, our era. We want to show all of that. Now this overdone, so he's always worried. I never noticed this. He's anxious about overdoing. It looks like overdoing it seems to be preoccupying him. Okay, yeah, fine. It'll make some people laugh, people who don't know any better. But it'll make the people who know, who have taste, sad. And when the people who know put you down, it can topple the whole theater. I think that's what's being said. Oh, there be players that I've seen and heard others praise, and that highly... Oh, yeah. And then this is this idea of some actors think some other actors who are way overdoing it. Like, they're not reflecting any kind of human. Why? Because they imitated humans so abominably. They didn't seem real. They didn't seem real. And that's definitely not the kind of acting or the theater that Hamlet's going for. Again, when you look at the play within the play, it does reflect, Emma Smith talks about how it reflects this older style of language and theater. And here you're watching a play that's quite new and fresh and modern, for $15.99 for 2022. And it's articulating an aesthetic that's worth thinking about, because it doesn't seem like the play within the play really meets a lot of these criteria. Oh, reform it together and let those players... Oh, and then there's some stuff about the clowns. So clowns, it seems, improvise. And that's annoying. He doesn't like that. He doesn't like the improvisation because he's a writer. Well, Hamlet is, I guess. And maybe Shakespeare. I mean, maybe, again, I don't think this is Shakespeare's voice. But look, I wrote it. They should do it. They go off and they start to just make people laugh. And it can go on. And then the big problem is, in the meantime, some necessary question of the play is lost. I think this is very interesting, mostly because another ghost that haunts the play is Yorick, and Hamlet himself seems to clown and play up the clown. So it's this idea that in clowning, in joking, there's some kind of delay to the action of the play. Well, isn't that kind of the play that we're watching, called Hamlet? That Hamlet in clowning is holding off these essential questions, I guess. And he goes, that's bad. That's bad. Again, these lines have all come to mean a lot more different things to me this year. But this is in prose, not verse. He's speaking to these players. He seems to be having a lot of fun. He's playing the director, the writer, and we all know that Hamlet likes to be the actor as well. He seems to be started playing all the roles. The dramatic importance of this scene is it really indicates Hamlet's investment in the theater, his desire for an aesthetic of what he's looking for on stage, and again, that control. He himself has this need to control and direct.